All right. We can go to John 10. So I got a little testimony. So my family back home, we've employed these two brothers with the Sons of Belial. They're, complete unbelievers. We've had them for 10 years, and shared the word with them 1 million times. And the oldest brother, he never got past anything. He never got any seed into any bit of his heart, we thought. And then last week he got caught stealing. And one of the other employees kind of ratted him out, and which the other employee is a great believer. But these guys live on this code. They were raised like feral children. Was an alcoholic, and dad left, and so they were on their own. But they have that code: you never snitch, And so this was like the biggest deal to him. So, anyways, my dad just approached him. He said they weren't really stealing, they were doing side work, but they weren't telling my dad that they were using his materials, which he said, you can do side work, I don't have a problem with that, just pay me for what you use. So he wasn't real hard on me about it, but he just blew up, said he's going to sue. He called the EPA on us, called OSHA. It was a pretty big deal. So my dad had to get a lawyer, he had to call a compliance company, make sure everything was, because we thought OSHA and all was going to come out. But as soon as he did this to my dad called me. We just immediately prayed for the guy, because I was like, wow, this is not good for him. Like, we were just like trying to intervene, like Moses did. Like, God, don't kill him. Like, it's not good for you for somebody who's a child of God. So we prayed for him. And my parents have been praying for him since then. And the guys at work, and he even threatened to beat this guy up that told him. And text message threats and stuff like that. And that guy, like I said, he was a great believer. He's been praying for him. So everybody's been praying for this guy. But we thought that he's long gone. We fired him, took the truck back, everything like that. Then OSHA called. My dad talked to OSHA, and he said, yeah, I know, we have to let this guy go. We got caught stealing. They were like, oh, well, we're not even going to come out and inspect that. We'll just send us some pictures. Make sure, we have it on file that you're compliant. So that was pretty cool. But the coolest thing, and this was, my dad just called me this morning and told me, Friday, Sean is the guy's name, he called my dad. He said, can we have lunch? I said, sure. So they went and had lunch, and he just broke down on my dad. And we know the guy too, his buddy that used to run with them, he's a different type of person now. He's got a family and he's a believer. He went and talked to him, and so that guy took him to his church to talk to his pastor. And this guy, the hardest heart you've ever seen, he's a big melted puppy now. And he's begging my dad for forgiveness, and he said, you're the only family I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, you've been better to me than any of my family. And he says, actually, I've never seen anybody so generous and do so much for other people than you. And he literally said, you saved my life. And I don't know what is wrong with me. Was just falling over himself.
Hallelujah. Right.
And all these people have been praying for him. Andrew and I have been praying for him. My parents, despite him trying to take out their whole business, they just kept praying for him. The employees that he was threatening were praying for him. And man, from just crazy. We thought it would never happen. I thought his brother might end up getting born again. But I just thought this guy never had My dad sat there and shared the word with them, told them how much he cared for them and loved them for over an hour at lunch. And take him right back in as an employee, everything. So that was pretty awesome turn of events. And pretty awesome miracle that God did in this guy's heart and his life. Because he was done. I mean, if you're going to forsake the one place where you are getting Christ, I mean, you're done, really. That's what we were thinking. I mean, the devil was just going to take him.
Yeah.
He had no protection, So, that was pretty awesome. My dad called me and told me that this morning. I said, I have to share that, Phyllis. It's just such a great story.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're going to look at the story of Lazarus this morning. And it sits here in a really cool place in the Bible. It's in John chapter 11, actually. But I'm going to set it up in the time frame. So John 10, in verse 22. So Jesus is in Jerusalem here, and it was at Jerusalem the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. So this sets up a time frame. Jesus Christ is in Jerusalem, and it's at this feast time. It's winter. It would have been in December. This is right before this. The chapter preceding is when he healed the man that was born blind, and then he's staying there, for a couple of days. I don't know how long it was, but it's in December. He's in Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is where Lazarus lived, and Mary and Martha. We're in Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem. So we'll just kind of get a taste of what's going on here. We can, in verse 23, and Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. So he was there preaching, arguing basically with the Jews a lot. I mean, he heals the blind man, and he's going to argue with them, and he's going in there. And so skip down to verse 30, so you kind of know what these verses are familiar. It says, I and my Father are one. He drops that big bombshell on the Jews. Then they took up stones to stone him. And then he talks to them some more. And I'm just going to skip some of this stuff because chapter 11 is pretty long. We're going to go through it. We'll go through 39. It says, therefore, so he tells them, I and my Father are one, and they argue, and then, therefore, they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hand. And this thing got really heated because, as we'll read later, he leaves, and when he comes back for Lazarus, the disciples are like, we're not going back. So this thing was pretty heated. They were going to get him. But he escaped out of their hand, and they went away again beyond Jordan into the place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. Now this place was called Bethabara, where, is that right? Where John was baptizing? And it was about 25 miles, is what I can figure out, from Jerusalem.
It's a little long.
I think that's long. Okay. That's what I saw, but maybe 20?
18.2.
18. So that's where he went, 18.2. So that was December though, remember? Or maybe into January, I don't know how, but he was in Jerusalem for a while. He healed a blind man, then he argued with the Jews, and then he left. And so that was December, early January. Now, we'll go to chapter 11, verse 1. Now, a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary, and her sister Martha. Now, Lazarus was one of two people that it distinguishes as the person Jesus loved, right? Lazarus was Jesus' homeboy. Everywhere Jesus went, he was engaged in basic work. With the disciples, it was always training, reproving, getting them to believe. With all the people that he encountered, it was always ministering, And Lazarus, he could chill. When he came to Jerusalem, he was staying with Lazarus and Mary and Martha. They were all just hanging out. They were good friends. So, I just want to make this point real quick. When he left Jerusalem, because he had to flee, he probably had been staying with Lazarus. So at that point, well, I'm sure Lazarus was not sick when he left, because he probably would have ministered to him. So Lazarus got sick after he left. But we'll just hold on to that one. Now a certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was that Mary, which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. And that word for sick is not actually the same word that's used earlier. This one is fading away. He's dying. So they sent word to Jesus that he was fading away. Now, when Jesus heard that, he said, the sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. So, right then and there, they tell him he's sick. They sent word. Now, how long would it take to get 20 miles or whatever? By foot.
It's a day's journey.
It's a day's journey. That's what I figured, a day and a half. So you count this up. A day. Then, well, let's keep going. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. So you got a day's journey to get there, saying that Lazarus is sick. And then Jesus stays there 2 days. And then how long would it have taken Jesus to get back? Yeah, so we got 4, maybe going into 5 days. Now Lazarus, we find out later, was dead for how many days when he got back? 4 days. So, and I only make this point just because I've read and seen people talk about this now, that Jesus Christ stayed there and that God allowed him to die. That God told him to stay there. And my point is, if Jesus Christ, could have made it back to heal him from being, he didn't have enough time to even make it back to heal him. Lazarus died while the carrier was on the way to tell Jesus Christ. Because I heard this teaching that, it's, God uses death and, all this stuff, and they took it out of this. I was like, well, he was dead. He couldn't even get there. But I want to make one other point real quick about the time frame. If it's December, Jesus Christ leaves. He goes to this Bethabara. He's there hanging out. Lazarus becomes sick because Jesus Christ wouldn't have left him sick. Lazarus becomes sick. He gets sick to the point where he's fading away. Then they send word to Jesus. What time frame do you think we're looking at now? I'm guessing late January, early February, that Jesus Christ has been in this city. And I bring this up because this is going to be a kind of a cool point of why this thing sits here like it does in the time frame. Because you're looking at February. Well, you got March, and then you got April. And what feast is in April? Passover. This is coming up to the end for Jesus. He's got 2 months, 2.5 months. And God's going to make a huge point coming up here when Jesus gets back and teaches. And let's look again at that one verse, verse 4. He said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God. And that not unto death is not going to, it's another translation, is not going to end in death. His situation isn't going to end in death, but for the glory of God. And I saw these people saying that death is for the glory of God. This is what they're drawing out of it. But this one's not going to end in death, but for the glory of God. And God's going to use this 2 months before Jesus has to endure all this as a great teaching point. And the reason I brought up that Lazarus was probably already dead, and why Jesus would wait there 2 more days. Well, if he was already dead, what's it matter if he's, and God says right off the bat, this is not going to end in death. It's going to be for the glory of God. If he's already dead, what's it matter if Jesus stays there a couple more days? If God says he's going to get him up anyways. It's, not that big of a deal. It's definitely not a big deal for Lazarus. He's dead. It's more of a big deal for Mary and Martha, and the ones close to him, and for Jesus and the disciples, because he loved Mary and Martha, is what it just said. And he knew what they were going through. So he obviously wanted to get back, because as soon as they give him the news that, hey, he's sick, Jesus Christ goes to God. God says it's not going to end in death, but for the glory of God. So Jesus' desire was to come back. So he did listen to God and stay and wait 2 more days. Verse 6, when he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Then after that he said to his disciples, let's go to Judea again. Let's go back. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? They're like, And Jesus answered, and I like this, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. So he's saying, you got the light of the world here, and I'm saying we're going back. If you don't want to stumble, stick with me. We'll be okay. And these things said he, and after that he said unto them, our friend Lazarus sleeps. So I don't know if God told him with the first promise that he was dead, but now he knows he's dead. Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. So now he knows he's going to get him up. So he's got this promise. So I'm sure he's pretty excited to get there. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he's sleeping, he'll be all right. We don't need to go. They did not want to go back. That's what I said. I mean, when they left, they actually had to hightail it out of there, because they were going to get killed at that point. Or at least they were really scared. So they didn't want to go back. 13, howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of just taking a sleep, taking a nap. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And it's actually, in past tense, it's Lazarus died. So we knew he had been dead. And he says, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. So this whole deal, it's a big setup for the people around there, because look what was coming. He was going to be gone. They were going to kill him. And Andrew brought this great point up to me this morning. So this is all going to be a big to-do to get people's believing up. That's what he just said, that you may believe, and so that the people may believe. But he was going to have something big happen that he was going to have to see. Think about what this meant to him after Lazarus got up. He was about to spend all that time in the grave. And so, anyways, I thought that was a great point Andrew made this morning. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go. I guess we'll go too, that we may die with him. With Jesus. They thought they were going to get killed. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. And being a hunter and shooting deer that you can't find until a couple days later, I know what happens to them. That's pretty nasty. And I did kind of look up the stages of decomposition this morning. In 4 days, organs are kind of liquefying. And there's and I make this point, just to make the point that if God can heal that, if your brain's liquid or jelly at that point, and God puts it all back together and your thoughts and your mind is back, you know, like, I gotta do that. And so at that time, like if this was about February, the average temperature is around 60 high. So I've shot the deer in colder weather than that, and find them a day later, and you can't eat them. They're done. Anyway, so God can heal whatever we have going on. There's nothing too big. Where were we? Oh, verse 18. Now Bethany was near unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off, or like a mile and a half, I believe. Is that right, Jim?
Yeah.
1.8.
A Sabbath day's journey work.
And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. And I saw an interesting point. I don't know if this is true or not, but this is one of the only places in John that it's not like speaking down about the Jews. And these Jews are there comforting them. And a lot of these guys believe too. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. And that still should be there. And actually, this Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. Went and met it was like, Alicia Bollinger had like a little side note that it meant she kind of went secretly. And Mary, it kind of implies that she knew here. This is what the note said, but that you put that still in there. Mary didn't know at this time. Martha went and snuck out to go see Jesus. Because you don't want to give the implication that Mary was mad at Jesus. You know. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. And this I think is one of the great points of why God put this in here, right here at the end. Because right after this, next chapter, he's heading back to Jerusalem for Passover. This is at the end in John. This is the last thing he does. And then we got to Passover. And here's one of these teachings. Where were we? 23? Yeah. Jesus said unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. And Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection. Yeah. Here we go. I mean, this is the big point God's going to try to drive home here. I am the resurrection, and I am, where was it? I'm the life, right? Yeah. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth on me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. So he's there, going to make this big point to all these people at the end of his line, at the end of his work, that he's the resurrection. He's the life. He that believes on me. This is why God was doing this. This is why Lazarus stayed in the grave a little extra. So that people could see and believe. Because this was it. They had to. And he's the only way to the resurrection. He's the only one to have that, give that authority out, to give that ability out of resurrection. Here's what it is. The last time he's going to be here. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Martha? She said unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And to drive this point home to all these folks is what he had to do. I mean, this was his, I just think it's cool that it's sitting right here. This was the last big work that he does. And it's to drive home the resurrection and that he is the Messiah, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way, called Mary her sister secretly, saying, the Master has come and calls for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly. So she obviously wasn't mad at him. She rose quickly and came unto him. And I think this is a great example of God's heart here. So Jesus Christ knows he's going to get Lazarus up. He knows he's going to be fine. He has the promise. He understands what's going to happen. This thing was going to be a glory to God. But he loved Martha and he loved Mary. They were tender to him. He loved Lazarus too, obviously. But he knows Lazarus is getting up. And he knows Lazarus is just sleeping now. But here comes Mary. And now Jesus was not yet come, verse 30, into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. The Jews then which were with her in the house and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up and hastily went out, followed her, saying, she's going up to the grave to cry there. And when Mary was come where Jesus was, she saw him and fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, so she's at her end of her rope, crying. Just, if you'd have just been here, he wouldn't have died. And the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled himself. He knew the outcome, right? He knew what was going to happen, but he sees his friends and all these people crying and so upset. Verse 35, Jesus wept. He weeps too. And I think that's a great point for how God feels when we're upset or if we're going through great stress or loss or anything like God's just as upset about it. And Jesus Christ was just as upset about it. Even though God sees the long run, we're all getting back up. It's upsetting. And it's upsetting to God too. And I was talking about this actually with Andrew last night. He said, a lot of people will probably, or the religious way you deal with that circumstance is, why are you crying as the minister? Do you not see the believing? Are you not believing right? Instead of having great compassion.
Yeah.
His compassion was so great that he literally cried. I mean, it made him cry, even though he knew I was about to get Lazarus up, and all this is going to change because you guys are so upset. He was just that upset. Verse 36, then said the Jews, behold, how he loved him. And some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? Well, it's not magic. He was 25 miles, 18 He was far away. The guy died. Jesus therefore, again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. Wait, did I skip it? Oh, okay. Jesus therefore, again, groaning in himself, comes to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone laid upon it. And Jesus said, take ye away the stone. And Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he had been dead 4 days. Well, I thought she said earlier that she believed in the resurrection. And Jesus said unto her, said I not unto thee, that if you would believe, that you should see the glory of God? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I say, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. This was what he was doing all this for. This was what God was setting it up, that they might believe. This was the last big ditch effort to get these Jews to finally turn to him, to finally come. He's about to get crucified. He's about to be gone. And, you know, that's why God had Lazarus stay in there longer, so it could be even more impactful. And also, I really do believe what Andrew said, that he himself could have greater faith going into the grave. That thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither let thy Holy One to see corruption. You know, he had to have these things go on that trained him up to even be able to face and overcome that. That they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth. Now that's really cool too, because you think of like how bad he was off, corruption-wise, and it's fixed like that. I mean, that's a heck of a thing. Bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, loose him, and let him go. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which he did, believed on him. And that was the whole point. That it would get more people to believe on him. I mean, he waited, so it was a bigger impact, that more people would believe. And this caused a huge stir. I mean, it was big time. Many, many people believed on this, even so much that Pharisees later were going to kill Lazarus too. They were going after Lazarus because this story was so big. And I think, I don't know, where was that? I think it was, I read that earlier, about when they tried to come and kill Lazarus. Oh, so this is passive, yeah, verse 9 of chapter 12. So this is when they're all coming for the Passover feast at this point. And this is the big impact. The large crowd of the Jews then learned that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but they might also see Lazarus. So this is impacting the feast where all the Jews are coming for Passover, whom he raised from the dead. But the chief priest planned to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and were believing in Jesus. Isn't that cool though, how it sits there right before Passover? How God would do that? I mean, not that he caused Lazarus to be sick and die, but that since Lazarus died, he used that for Jesus' sake, for all the people's sake, to one last huge deal to bring all those Jews into the fold. And it worked, I mean, obviously. Yeah, and I used to teach that God, whatever, caused Lazarus to die, but if you look at the timeline, I would say by the time the courier got there to tell Jesus, he was probably dead. And if he wasn't, he died long before Jesus would have made it back. To have been dead 4 days. So that wasn't the case, but God used that and made that whole thing happen. So that's what I wanted to share this morning with you guys.